Cuyahoga County Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, June 14th is now called to order. Jean, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Germana. Here. Mr. Gallagher. Here. Mr. Schron. Here. Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Hairston. Here. Ms. Simon. Here. Mr. Greenspan. Here. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Council President Brady. Council President Brady is absent today. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Jean, is there any public comment related to agenda?
Mr. Vice, I have none. Thank you.
All right, well, we have one item for our committee today, our confirmation hearing. And welcome to the confirmation hearing at which council will consider the appointment of Brandy Carney as Director of the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. For a little background, the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services was established by ordinance in 2011 to replace the former Department of Justice Affairs. The department was previously headed by George Taylor. The Department of Public Safety and Justice Services administers the county's public safety grants, the Regional Enterprise Data Sharing System, and oversees the Office of Emergency Management, the Cuyahoga Emergency Communications Systems, and the Witness Victim Service Center. It is our understanding that Ms. Carney is currently serving in an interim capacity and will be made permanent upon council confirmation. The hearing process will proceed as follows. The nominee will be offered an opportunity to address her qualifications, motivations for seeking the position, and outlooks and plans regarding the office. Council members will then be offered the opportunity to ask questions of the nominee. We will do so in rounds, allowing each council member to ask 2 questions per round until all council questions have been answered. Once all questions have been asked, we will entertain a motion to recommend that council approve or reject the nomination at the next regular meeting. If we are not ready to act on that motion today, we will defer making the recommendation. Assuming a motion to recommend approval or rejection has been made, council will vote on that recommendation at its next regular meeting. Thank you, and let's begin. And Jean, if you would read the resolution into the record.
Resolution number 2016-0098, a resolution confirming the county executive's appointment of Brandy R. Carney upon her taking the oath of office as Director of the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
And Ms. Carney, feel free. Good morning. Thank you for the promotion, and feel free to address council.
Sure. So I have.
Did your button push?
Thanks. I have a brief, about 5 minutes. I can speak about some qualifications, some background, what I've done in the position so far, and then I'm happy to answer any questions from you guys. Good afternoon, Council President and Council members. I'm pleased and honored to be here to discuss myself, my qualifications, and history with the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services and answer any questions you have. Public Safety and Justice Services excites me. I'm passionate about the work and truly enjoy being part of it. To tell you a little bit about myself, throughout high school, I was heavily involved with dance and actually trained with the Cleveland Ballet before their move to San Jose. I attended Oklahoma City University for dance, but following an injury, I came back and got excited about work in government and city planning. At that time, I completed a degree at Cleveland State University College of Urban Affairs. Approximately 10 years ago, I began working for the county, which time was the Department of Justice Affairs, now the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. Family is incredibly important to me. I have been with my amazing husband for 20 years. He's a longshoreman at the Port of Cleveland. We have a very special 8-year-old daughter, McKenna, who is absolutely my life. Many of you probably know that. Beginning in November of last year, I have held the Public Safety and Justice Services Administrator position. Working directly with former Director Taylor to manage the budget and staff of our approximately 100-person department. Throughout my time with the county, I have had the opportunity to be directly involved with a few incredible projects, or many incredible projects, I guess, and I'd like to highlight a few here. I have led and managed the emergency management staff, including serving as County Emergency Operations or EOC Manager for many weather-related events, but also Ebola, H1N1, and the Brelo verdict. For Hurricane Sandy, I coordinated with the state, and the Cuyahoga County ultimately received a presidential declaration and more than $10 million that went to our county and its political subdivision from public assistance funds. Additionally, we recently completed the build-out of our EOC at the Juvenile Justice Center. This build-out was completed for approximately $815,000, while the former project costs were nearing $21 to $23 million, depending on who you ask, unfortunately. It provides fully upgraded, fully functional countywide emergency management operation for disasters, emergencies, and major scheduled events. It can also serve as a backup facility for municipalities and neighboring communities. This Thursday at 10 a.m. is the opening, and I hope all of you can make it. I know you were all invited. I really appreciate the support that the Cuyahoga County Executive, as well as all of you, put towards that project and the funding for that project. A final note with respect to that project is both that project as well as the dispatch center relocation were budgeted for approximately $3.5 million and came in about $2.5 million. So those were both under budget projects also. I've been heavily involved with 911 consolidations, which I can speak directly to later, any questions, but started the project in 2013, encouraging consolidations and completing a written plan for communities. At that time, there were 48 regional dispatch centers. Today, there are 33, and I expect by the second quarter of next year, we'll be at 27 at the very least. One final recent collaborative effort, myself, along with Chief Bova, Director Taylor, Director Kraus, and Mr. Laster, convened all the countywide SWAT teams just recently, asked them what their biggest hurdle was. They said they were not able to talk to each other, and they haven't been able to. We leveraged both grant funds and general funds, identified 4 SWAT channels that will be countywide encrypted channels that only SWAT teams will be able to talk on. Those will be available by the RNC for them, or they're expected to be available. And so we are outfitting all the SWAT teams with that capability now, which they've all been very happy. It's not a capability they previously had to talk to one another's teams. And many of the teams are made up of multiple cities, and so it really makes a difference for radio communications for them. Relationships are key to me. I've built my career on the importance of relationships and collaboration. I work regularly internally with Cuyahoga County Executive, council members, and department directors and staff. Externally, I work with fire chiefs, mayors, police chiefs, volunteer organizations, Red Cross, et cetera. I always think that that's, 9/10 of the job are those relationships that we all need to have. I attend state meetings such as 911 to stay up on new laws, technology, and future projects. I'm a hands-on leader and a team player. My door is always open to my staff. I like to start and, most importantly, complete new projects that are innovative, increase technology, or increased efficiency in services. Public Safety and Justice Services is a true support agency for the community. As previously discussed, I have significant grants experience, and I'm always directly involved in any fiscal or budget matters with my department. In closing, I have a passion for the job I'm currently holding for the department. If given this opportunity, I look forward to continuing the work with all of you, the county executive, and all other county departments and external partners to meet the needs of the community. I will continue to be fiscally aware and responsible while also moving the Department of Public Safety and Justice Services forward. So, yes, if you guys
Thank
have
you.
questions for
Yes,
me.
thank you. So we'll have 2 questions per round. We'll start at this end, and
I don't have any questions. I'll just make a general statement. Having observed Brandy Carney for the last 5.5 years, I think she's extremely well qualified. No offense to the chief there. I think this is a phenomenal opportunity for the county, and I support this nomination.
Thank you.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would start with a general comment that there is a time and a place to bring in new talent from the outside, but I think it's always a good thing when when we're able to identify capable people with experience and promote from within. I think it's good for the organization, good for the morale, and good for the people. So I'm happy to see this.
Thank you.
My question is regarding the opiate and fentanyl overdose epidemic. Truly horrific as the events in Orlando were over the weekend. We lose the same number of people every 6 weeks in Cuyahoga County to these overdoses, and it clearly is a very complex problem involving not only public safety but also mental health and addiction services and the coroner's office and a lot of other agencies but I have to think that there's more that we can do and that we can bring the numbers down way less than what we have. My question is, what more do you think that the Public Safety Department could contribute as part of a larger effort to bring this under control?
Sure, thank you. So I agree, and I think everybody would. It's absolutely an epidemic, especially in our community as throughout. Just recently, myself within the Department of Public Safety, Chief Boba, the medical examiner, the County Board of Health, and the Sheriff's Office convened, got together to talk about things. At that time, for example, we were notified that approximately 2/3 of the police departments within the county were carrying naloxone, which is the agent that can be immediately administered to curtail the side effects of an overdose or an overdose. And there was 1/3 of the police departments that were not carrying it. Some of it just reported as it might be an EMS problem, but again, sometimes the first person on scene is in fact a police department representative. The Board of Health actually had that free and available for police departments. So we convened, we did put out a letter to the police departments that did not have that within their cars and encourage them. That was just recently sent out. So I think the Department of Public Safety is a perfect conduit for information for those. You know, it's definitely a larger event. I know internally we've been meeting recently with other state and local organizations about the possibility of, you know, emergency status on something that's so critical right now. So I think we're going to continue to work with the medical examiner and state and local representatives and see what else that we can do. But again, within public safety specifically, you know, we're perfect for support and for information moving it forward.
Mr. President, I would just add that there's a wide variety in the extent to which the various states have enacted facilitative legislation and also have provided financial support, and I think it would be good to identify where the state of Ohio is in this regard and what we think they could do and to work with our representatives at that level. Thank you.
Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo my colleague Dave Greenspan. I haven't been here 5 years, but the time I've been here, you've done a great job and continue the fantastic work that you're doing. Just quickly, during the budget process, we talked about the grants for municipal fire departments. Recently, I just met with a group of firefighters in my area, and so can you tell me what the status of those grants are?
Sure. So within the budget process, all of you put aside, if this is what you're speaking of, Councilman, the $200,000 for fire departments are required to submit directly a grant request, assistance to firefighters grant to the feds. If in fact they were approved, that $200,000 was put aside to support their matching funds. Matches anywhere from 10 to 20% of their allocation. The Fire Chiefs Association, so the fire chiefs actually came to us and said that while they were absolutely appreciative, again, communications always being one of their number one priorities, that they were finalizing after 10 years of being able to communicate, and there was a final round of radios that needed to be purchased. And they had asked if that money could be to purchase radios instead. And again, that was on behalf of the Fire Chiefs Association. Those radios would in fact support both fire radios as well as police radios. So that was approximately $125,000. So it is supporting many of the fire departments directly. The remaining $75,000, they also asked that for the RNC, that they use it to provide or to purchase what's called MABUS for fire departments. It's Mutual Aid Box Alarm System, a MABUS acronym. It allows for a tone radio at every single department so they can tone out in the event of an emergency and be notified. And that will go to each one of the departments. So they asked for that remaining money for this one-time purchase. So with respect to the AFG, there might be some money left over, and I think we identify those critical need cities who truly are not able to have their match. But again, that $200,000 that was initially there is something that they came to us and asked to be used otherwise.
Being put to good use, thank you.
Yeah.
I know the group was definitely aware of the Fire Chiefs Association coming forth about the radio, and so I was just wondering about the balance of that, so I thank you for that information. Thank
Sure.
you.
And again, the 125 is specific for the radios. The 75,000, I suspect, will come in lower, and so there's where there's an opportunity for match funds to be used for AFG.
Councilwoman Brown.
I wanted to kind of touch on the 911 network and how that is actually the process from start to finish, because I had a personal experience. So if you can kind of walk me through, once a 911 call is made from a cell phone, what happens next?
Sure. So in Cuyahoga County, and I always say we're kind of an anomaly the way that 911 is set up here. So if you call 911 from your cell phone anywhere in Cuyahoga County, and again, this is only from your cell phone, that call goes directly to CCOMS, the County Dispatch Center. CCOMS then asks and identify where your emergency is at and transfers that call to one of now today 32 other dispatch centers. At those 32 dispatch centers, they stay on the line and provide police and fire or EMS to the caller. The only two kind of caveats to that are Olmsted Township, CCOMS actually dispatches for. So if you call 911 from a cell phone in Olmsted Township, or that's where your emergency is, that call stays at CCOMS and we dispatch for them. Also, if council recalls, approximately 6 months ago, Cleveland came to us, and only within the inner core of the city, nowhere on the borders, but in the inner core now, for the first time ever, if you call 911 only in Cleveland, it will go directly to Cleveland. However, any of the border areas of Cleveland and all the other 58 municipalities, they still go directly to CCOMS, the call does.
The city specifically was, that I experienced trouble was in Maple Heights, and it might not be a fair question to present to you, but can you touch on what might be causing some issues? Because you're aware there's some issues with the system. So can you, maybe Maple is a city that you're familiar with that has previous issues?
I would say with Maple Heights, I know that they consolidated into a regional dispatch center over the last few years, and I don't know when specifically this incident occurred, but there were some just operational changes and some differences in radio communications there, so it may have been that. However, with respect to the 911 system over the last few months, I personally have been working continuously on the 911 system. There has been some items that have came up recently. Approximately a month ago, I put in a circuit order for an additional circuit that would provide a backup or a redundancy for part of the system. So that should significantly help. What we found are one of the circuit or links were actually going down for maintenance, and it was causing some system issues. So this backup circuit hopefully will really fix some of the problems that we have, or hopefully we won't have those problems. And it will be a circuit that if we needed the other one, it would be an automatic failover, so it wouldn't be a manual. No one has to go in there and personally make changes. It automatically. So now we have a redundant circuit. I can also tell you that with our 911 system, I currently have 3 vendors specifically involved in it. Because of what came out in the last few weeks and some of those circuit issues, I have asked all of them to convene, and I set up an engineering meeting for next week for the engineering departments of all 3 vendors to come together to provide a full network diagram, identify any potential points of individual failure or where there could be, and make recommendations to move forward. So I want you to know that I absolutely don't take that lightly. You know, I know that every 911 call literally could mean a life, and it's absolutely something that we're working on to make sure it's a fully built system.
I thank you for those responses, and I appreciate your attention to the issues, and I certainly applaud that. The only other question that I would have, if I may, is the text 911. That was something, I wonder if that's something that we could do. Has that been discussed? I know it's in Hamilton County, and perhaps it might even be an alternative to some of the situations we've experiencing with this cell phone. So could you touch on that a little bit?
Sure,
Thank you.
absolutely. You know, there's actually a lot to discuss with text to 911, but to briefly speak about it, again, because of the way that we're set up that I spoke about earlier, and we transfer calls, it is a little bit different in Hamilton County. If you're, or most dispatch centers, if you're in a certain area and you call 911, that call goes to one particular center. So what our current problem with our current 911 system, or the limitation, is that the transfer capability, because everything has to come into CCOMS first, and the transfer capability is not currently there. I have been working with the text control provider as well as our 911 vendor over the last year with this, and both of them have said to me, it's mostly our 911 vendor that needs to finalize, because I suspect by the beginning of 2017, they'll have that capability in place where we can, in fact, transfer calls. So I know that there was also some discussion on cost for that. Again, we have the system and the capability now. The new system that we put in place within the last year or 2 is now a digital system, so we're actually able to receive text. Before, that wasn't a capability. So now that we can receive it, we need to be able to transfer it, and they're working on it. The cost is approximately a one-time cost of $25,000. Yeah, it's very inexpensive. There's some network fees, which will probably cost from $5,000 to $10,000 a month, but it's something that's absolutely manageable for the service that we can provide. So while there's a couple things that we need to work on, I do suspect in the next year we'll have that capability available. There's one other feature. There is a web-based function that's available. Unfortunately, it would not be used within your regular 911 system, and it has limited capabilities. So while that could be an option for us, it just may not be the most ideal option. So I think if we stick with the previous option I spoke about, again, within the next year, we're working at it, and we should be able to have something in place.
Councilwoman Simon?
Thank you. So I'm fully supportive of your position going forward. I've watched you for 5 years and have been impressed. And you said when you opened up with your opening statement that you like to see new projects through to the end. You've been here a long time. Do you have any projects in your mind that you've been thinking about or might be beneficial to the county that you yourself have envisioned?
You know, there's a lot of new projects. The 911 consolidation and the Shared Services Fund, I've been part of. You know, I think RED's one of the offices in our department, and the possibility for criminal data sharing system is something that, you know, for police departments to share data, that could be an option that we look at in moving forward. Working with Director Kraus, you know, fire districts, you know, public safety is so expensive. So the opportunity for some consolidations within fire districts or with multiple public safety bomb teams is something that we have just initiated recently, but they're projects that I'm happy to work on. I can speak to, for example, just recently We convened the 3 major hospital systems within Cuyahoga County. Currently, depending on which fire department you work for, they all have different, not largely different, but different EMS protocols. So from the time they get on scene to the take somebody to the hospital. So as a neutral party, again, that's a project that I like to take on and bring all of them to the table, provide the administrative support, and try and work with them to identify one specific policy that could be used countywide or regionally, or if not, then at least 95% of it. So that's another project that we've been working on with the hospitals.
Thank you. And then secondly, have you yourself been involved with the RNC planning for the convention?
I have. So myself and Director Taylor and the sheriff and Chief Bova just went out to the MAC, the Multi-Agency Coordination Center that's at the IX Center. I have attended meetings, some of the Secret Service meetings for the communications, as well as for the EOCs that will be involved. So I personally will be at the MAC that week, so a public safety representative at the MAC as well as a sheriff's office representative can be there. And there's approximately 100 different organizations, state and federal, that will be there for information sharing during the week of the RNC. Our county EOC will also be activated. There's approximately 17 organizations that have committed to staffing it. So again, if there's something that happens within Cuyahoga County, the emergency will go through there within our EOC and then be funneled up to the MAC depending on what level of needs or support for resources it has. So I have been involved. There's been a lot of meetings recently. I haven't been at all of them. There's some tabletop exercises that are coming up. That's a good opportunity for everybody to talk about the information flow.
So what's this, can you elaborate a minute on the MAC?
Sure. So it is something that it's an information sharing coordination center. The acronym stands for Multi-Agency Coordination Center. It's an opportunity for the week of the RNC for everyone to be together so that if something, for example, for operational people to come together, so if something needs to happen and resources need to be sent out, that we're able to speak to each other and coordinate those resources from there. Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? Councilman Jamal.
Thank you very much. For all these years, the director has always looked over his left shoulder, and you have answered the questions when they couldn't. I'm just wondering, have you found the right person or persons to replace you so that if you look over your left shoulder, you have someone there? And I'm serious about that because you have been there when the directors have been stumped and helped them along the way. Do you have people that you're training to fulfill that position?
I don't have anyone currently for the administrator position that I just held. However, my department has phenomenal managers. Sometimes we talk about public safety so much. There's also 2 justice programs, witness, victim, and mediation, phenomenal managers that run and work amazingly with the courts. So I just hired a new fiscal services and budget manager, Mary Beth Vaughn, who's been phenomenal. So there's really a great support team, and we work together as a team within public safety.
Well, thanks. I do support your nomination.
Thank you.
Councilman Gallagher.
Much like Mr. Greenspan, I don't have a question. I've worked with you all these years. It seems like just yesterday, but it's obvious to myself and obvious in following the questioning of my colleagues, they've obviously seen your input and your work product. And I just personally want to thank you for pulling us through some very difficult times earlier on regarding the 911 and the Emergency Operations Center. And what are we calling that? We're not calling it the Emergency Operations Center.
Emergency Coordination Center.
Okay, we'll do that. And I just want to thank you, publicly for what you have done. I think this is a very important position, and I think the administration's made an excellent choice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Strawn.
Mr. Chairman,
You mentioned about shared services, and do you have any vision about shared services? Are you talking about throughout the 59 communities? And what kind of shared services are you looking at?
So again, speaking about the public safety entities, we've been working with regional collaboration on fire districts. You know, there's an opportunity to look at a couple just regions and see, you know, if there's an opportunity for them to share more equipment. And, you know, it's very expensive in public safety. Are there firehouses or police departments appropriately located, or is that some services or that we can help them provide? Grants is a good opportunity. We've convened many of the bomb teams, for example, and said, rather than having 6 different bomb teams in Cuyahoga County, you can still maintain your autonomy, but we'd be happy to work with you, have one overall, you know, the possibility of one overall bomb team for grant power, for application power. You have more people and you have one countywide team that's supporting 1.2 million versus just the you know, so many jurisdictions. So there's lots of opportunity for shared services. You know, a couple years ago, we put together a mass notification system for Cuyahoga County, and we wanted to encourage that as a shared service. So just recently, I looked prior to this meeting, and people had almost, you know, at that time, I think there were 40 independent notification systems throughout Cuyahoga County. Right now, there's 20 people that use our system, which is Ready Notify, and we're saving, within the cities, there's an approximate savings of almost $200,000 collectively annually because they canceled their contracts to use our system. So there's more opportunities there moving forward that will definitely work with regional collaboration.
Do you know what the fuel source is for most of these vehicles that you're talking about for these shared services?
For departments, many of them have their own independent stations, especially through their public works department.
That's how they're filling it up, but what is the source? What is it petroleum or is it natural gas? Or what?
A lot of them just had natural gas or E85, but I could get you more information on
Do
that.
they
I'd
have
be
natural
happy
gas? Have they gone to natural gas or most
Many of them
petroleum?
did years ago, but I can't speak to it now. I'd be happy to get you that information. I don't know if Director Kraus.
One of the questions that I had with the folks from RTA was that they are in the process of converting to natural gas, but it's 10 years on the cycle. And they don't really have a source for shared services as far as fueling it and refueling countywide. And just the savings alone in gasoline versus natural gas, it's $8 million of expenditure versus about $2.5 million for natural gas. And just wanting to know if we're looking at operational, and we had this conversation afterwards, this seems to me a place, if you're looking at big picture and finishing projects, this would be an ideal place for us to be doing shared services, being there, fill stations, locating them throughout the county, becoming the source for those other 59 communities. And if they haven't gone to like the 4 lanes and things like that are natural gas vehicles, it would be a way in which they should be cycling it in, just as though the conversations are for RTA. Instead of taking 10 years, could we accelerate that pace to save costs, save emissions, and all those things? So I throw that out as if you're looking at big projects, that's one that will move right to the bottom line and will result in millions and millions of dollars. And I know to my friends like Sonny Simon that would be a much lower emissions out there too. So thank you.
I'd be happy to follow up. I actually used to work for a nonprofit environmental organization, and we had a natural gas staff that was supported. This was 10, 15 years ago, but we actually, I had helped him to write a grant, and they had helped with a station on East 55th Street many years ago for some natural gas resources. So I'd be happy to follow up on that, sir.
Yeah, if the county actually controlled a major series of fill stations, we would be able to be that joint shared services to go into communities throughout the county. Mm-hmm. Those 59 communities could come to central locating, and we would actually be in the distribution business. Thanks.
Any further questions from the committee? All right. Well, you are certainly a known quantity. We've worked with you for many years, and we appreciate all that you've done, and we know your good work. So we've probably taken much of the suspense out of this. But I'll ask one question. We know the medical marijuana law bill was passed by the Ohio legislature. Tell us your thoughts on that and what impact you see it may have on our public safety.
You know, personally, I mean, I think that's something that the sheriff's office may deal directly with. You know, I can't speak to how public safety is going to respond to it. I know it just passed. You know, there's some personal opinions, but what's law is law, as you said. So I guess that's a question to see how public safety responds with the sheriff's office.
Okay. All right. Well, again, if there are no further questions, can we have a recommendation to move this resolution to the full council for second reading adoption? So moved. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. And Jean, would you please call the roll? All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Vice President, you did a voice vote.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Again,
I
thank
just
you.
want to say thank you
Yes.
so much. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
All right now.
Like your pen.
Thank you. Secret Service gave it to me today. Cool. Thank you.
At this time, we have our executive session. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings Law. Under that law, council may go into executive session during the meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council's committee of the whole will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to remain in council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent committee room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session has ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining matters?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Jean, call the roll.
Moving to executive session, Mr. Germana? Yes. Mr. Gallagher? Yes. Mr. Schron? Yes. Ms. Conwell is still absent. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Brown? Yes. Mr. Hairston? Yes. Ms. Simon? Yes. Again, Council President Brady is absent. Mr. Greenspan? Yes. And Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ayes have it. We will adjourn for executive session.